Catholic commentary. Spiritual warfare. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Jesus 911.
Good morning, everybody. Jesus 911. Ruben Nava reporting with Jesse Romero, two-man car. We are 10-8. Good morning, Jesse.
Reporting for duty, sir. Hey, Ruben, we're going to talk about the elections in the next, the last two segments, so we have a lot to say about it.
And invite the callers to call in. We would like to hear their take on it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's jump in right, just get this going here. There was a great article that we did last time, Ruben. It was called Satanism is Growing in Western Societies. It's an article, it's an interview with an exorcist in Italy. His name is Father Francois Derman. He's actually Canadian, but he lives out in Italy. And he's been an exorcist since 1994. So he gives, again, insight as to what's going on right now in light of his work as an exorcist. He wrote a book. Some of the questions that were asked of him we want to go through because they're very telling and basically they speak about our very present situation. He's asked, the death of the devil precedes the death of God, as you write in your book. Can the death of the devil in people's minds strengthen the demonic presence and field of action? So, in other words, they're asking him, the fact that so many people don't believe in the devil, doesn't this actually strengthen demons or demonic activity? So he responds, certainly, I once heard some people say, I have come to the awareness of the existence of God through the awareness of the existence of the devil, because I've seen it. This statement has a relative value, but it is true that if the figure of the devil is missing, one also loses sight of the figure of God itself. In this sense, the death of the devil can accompany or precede or favor that of God because it makes the concept of God very abstract. It makes faith arid and intellectualistic and makes us forget that we really need to be saved, helped, and protected by the Lord. So we must bear in mind that our faith consists in the effective presence of a loving God, and reasoning is not always the best way to reach God. Stop there. In other words, he's saying, yeah, that's a valid way to approach God. And a lot of guys come this way too, by the way. Mm-hmm. They say, man, I've encountered evil, man. There's got to be a God. I'm turning my heart over to God. Yeah. And so I know women that say the same thing. They've walked the dark path, and they said, I've seen demons, Jess. I've been to the dark side. I'm turning totally towards God. So this is a valid way of conversion, and Father's admitting it. He's admitting, yeah, this is definitely a route to conversion. And I would call this imperfect contrition. Yeah. You know, but it works. It gets some people back to church and back to a life of prayer. And it ends as he says, in our course on exorcism and theology, we teach the so-called theodicy. That's a discipline of theology. It basically means a study of suffering. Okay. He says theodicy, which focuses on a rational study of the relationship between God's justice and the presence of evil in the world. This rational theology is valid, but it's very different from the reality in a concrete and present God who acts in my life each day. So he's actually saying, yeah, actual life experience with the diabolical is an actual way to have a conversion and come back to God. Mm. Ruben?
Yeah, and I think the last time I made that comment about how Satanists can pick out a consecrated host among others that are not consecrated, and I know that this was taught to me. Well, this was not taught to me, but it was brought up in a lecture that I was at on the gangs and the occult, and what the lecturer was saying is that he knew that Satanists were taking communion hosts out of the church, and so in a sense, in like a back doorway, people start believing in the real presence because the devil believes in the real presence. I mean, it's similar. It's related here, and that's why I brought up that point. But
Ruben, you know who teaches that? His name's Lieutenant Walt Bowman from the LA Sheriff's Department. He's retired. I've attended that lecture. I worked with him at IRC. He gives that lecture, and as a result, that got him to re-look at his faith and come back to his faith very strongly about 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah, that was Richard Valdemar did the talk I was on. He's
also a strong Catholic,
Right, we've
and you
had him
see
on.
why.
Yeah, we had him
And
on.
Ruben, and there's also a former witch, a former Satanist who gives that talk. She just passed away, rest in peace. She became a Catholic shortly thereafter. Her name's Betty Brennan. At one of the family conferences in Long Beach, one of the early ones, she was brought out by Terry, and Betty Brennan, who was a high-ranking Satanist, said the same thing that you said, and that's what made her start looking into the Catholic faith.
Amen. Good. Next question. In an interview last year, you were alarmed by the resurgence of aggressive Satanism. What makes you think that, and how do you explain it? Well, if you look at the Democratic Party, huh?
Yeah, just look at the elections.
Yeah. Yes, I have seen it from my own experience, he says, but I can see it just by having a look on the internet. It makes me understand how Satanism is now a reality for many young people who already know so much about it, thanks to the resources they find online. On these websites, the figure of the devil is openly praised, and it attracts many people. This figure of the devil who emancipates himself from God to lead his life as he pleases. There's also a growth of real satanic groups, whereas in the past they were in a very exceptional reality. They are multiplying, he says, in a very worrying way, and I also see that this through the victims of Satanism, of dangerous rites, who come to see me and who have lived unprecedented, unimaginable sufferings to their own skin, to their own skin. Personally, I can see that more people are coming to see me than before, and unfortunately, I cannot follow all of them. Satanism has come out in the open, and we must be very careful. You know, Justin, there's you can do a quick search. A lot of these musicians have given their sold their soul to the devil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Guys like Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, even someone who was Niccolo Pagiani. He's a violinist and a guitarist. There's stories about him. Robert Johnson, the kind of the famous blues players, sold his soul allegedly at Clarksdale Crossroads, and he wrote about it in one of his songs. And even John Lennon, they're saying he was dabbling in satanic things. Rolling Stones, they have a song called "The Sympathy for the Devil," so they made it more palatable for people, the young people, as they listen to their music. You know,
Ruben, and a lot of the modern people. I mean, Nick Minaj, Beyonce,
yeah,
Lady Gaga. I mean, they admit. Lady Gaga says, "I gave my life to the devil." She goes, "I was making $200 a night, singing at these country bars and just these nightclubs, from one town to another." She said, and this one guy who was big and tall and handsome, he appeared to me in an alley as I'm walking to my car, and this guy told me, "Get down on your knees, and I'll make sure you'll never sing in a nightclub again. I'll make you the biggest star, the richest star. You'll have more money than you ever thought of." She says, I looked at him, and all of a sudden I knew he was otherworldly. She didn't say God. She said otherworldly. She goes, "I got down on my knees and worshipped him." She said, and this man told me, this otherworldly being told me, "I will make you richer and more popular than your wildest dreams." And look at her now. She admits she had an encounter with Satan.
Wow. Yeah. And this guy, Robert Johnson, he had, speaking with the devil, he said that the devil, basically taught him how to play guitar. He was just a regular guitar player, but when he came back, he was formidable and masterful. So, it's also reported that the Eagles, the famous band, the Eagles, they were dabbling in it, and that song, "Hotel California," was about that. You could check in, but you can never leave. That song,
"Highway to Hell." I mean, it goes on and on, Ruben. It's just the devil has impacted the music industry to the point where he evangelizes through their music.
Yeah, they made it more mainstream,
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another question asked of Father Derman, the exorcist from Italy. They ask him, isn't there a risk, on the other hand, of talking too much about the devil, of seeing its signature everywhere and attributing to it all the evils of humankind? Father Derman responds, "When people come to see me for an exorcism, I spend a lot of time talking to them, because they often forget that most of our evils are not caused by manifestations of the devil, but by ourselves, as we are the cause of 90% of our evils. That the devil then comes to exasperate them is a fact. He can undoubtedly lead us to despair, but he cannot be considered the primary cause of most parts of our evils. Adam and Eve committed the original sin, not the snake. Obviously, they were induced by the devil, but surely sin is caused by our choices. It would be too easy to dump our sins on the devil. It is not easy to reach a balance in this sense. People who rush to the exorcist on any occasion also risk not seeing the natural causes of their problems. So basically he's saying, whenever you think you have some type of diabolical affliction, first of all, go to the natural. Look at your own interior life, your own prayer life. Are you living in mortal sin? Do you have unclean sexual practices? Are there unclean things in your house? Are you living a disordered lifestyle? Do you have a prayer life? Do you have a sacramental life? Once you can check all those boxes off and say, man, I'm good in all those areas. I don't got Ouija boards in here. I don't got, Aztec calendars. I go to Mass, every Sunday in a state of grace. I go to confession once a month, pray my rosary. Once you can check those boxes off, then you move on to the supernatural.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next question. Should we believe in the power of such occult practices as the evil eye? Can those who have a rooted life of prayer be the victims of third parties who resort to occult practices?
You're probably going to have to do that the next segment, Ruben.
Yeah, looks like we're coming up on a break. You're listening to Jesus 911. We're talking about a longtime exorcist. He's saying that Satanism is growing in Western societies, without a doubt. And we'll be back on the other side of the break. And then the last couple segments, we'll be talking about what happened yesterday at the Capitol and elections. Be right back.
If you shop on Amazon.com, there's an easy way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Just visit smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center under the desired charity. Now, when you log into your Amazon account and purchase products, a portion of it will automatically go to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio at no cost to you. Thanks in advance for supporting CRC and VMPR. And may God richly bless you and your family.
How does the baby move in your tummy? How does the baby eat? Can the baby hear me? How did the baby get in there?
Wow, a pregnancy can sure generate a lot of questions. But what's important is that a baby is a baby, inside and out of the womb. Not just after birth, but 9 months before. At conception.
That's right. Every baby is a miracle. Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org, or better yet, simply dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword pro-life. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
A baby's heart is beating 18 days from conception.
Pro-life across America, the Billboard people.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Jesus 911, two-man car. We are 10-8. We are talking about an article written by a longtime exorcist who is in Italy. He's a Canadian-born priest, and he's it was a book that he read. We are taking out questions from his book, and he's answering them. So it says that, unfortunately, the fact that has been confirmed by my own experience, that and he's talking about the occult practices of the evil eye. Is there power in it? And he said everyone can be a victim of evil, but it's obvious that it is more difficult that a person who tries to live an honest life in the grace of God becomes prey to the devil. However, I have followed devout Christians who were under its grip, but if this happens, if God allows it, it is to enable these people to come to a greater good. So I personally witnessed that these people can make an important qualitative leap in their human life and in their life of faith. We also have various examples of possessed saints in history, and this means a lot. However, these people have been able to win the battle with God's help, and it strengthened their holiness and humanity as well. Well, the one state that comes to mind was the Bartolo Longo, right?
Yep, bless the Bartolo Longo. Yep.
Yeah. So, and people forget that Jesus spoke about the devil in the New Testament at least 6 times that I can recall, and he warns us. So for anyone who believes that this isn't true, you're going against Jesus' own teachings.
Yeah, this is the dogma of the faith, and dogma means something that's revealed from heaven, from God. Mm-hmm. It's way more than an ecumenical council or church doctrine. A dogma is a revelation from God. And how has God revealed that there's angels and demons? It's in the sacred scripture and the sacred tradition. It's dogma of the church. So another question they ask him is, do you think that Satanism is also widespread in the spheres of earthly power, or is that a myth? Are you kidding me? Look at the elections yesterday. Father responds, in order to become powerful, some people can be tempted to rely on the devil. And the purposes of Satanism is just that. I give you something, the devil, I offer you sacrifices as long as you give me something in return. So Satanism is a quid pro quo. And I'm telling you, a lot of politicians are Satanists without a doubt, or they're Luciferians. There's a quid pro quo. Father says, those who are in search of power are sometimes tempted to rely on the devil. The danger is real. It is absolutely not excluded that high-ranking people explicitly worship the devil. Not to mention Freemasonry, some of whose members can get along very well with Satanism. The next question, Ruben.
So the next question: how do you explain that some visionaries make accurate predictions? Does the devil know the future? And so he says it depends on whether these clairvoyant people are moved by God or not. If they're moved by God, it's not surprising that they're able to prophesy about certain things, but they're precisely prophets, and they are mentioned as such both in the Old and New Testament. And then he says, on the other hand, some people are able to guess what some future events, and the devil can intervene in this. He can know certain futures whose causes are already existing or already at work. The devil's very intelligent, far more than we are. He's able to see that the signs, the causes, and of the certain events that will happen in a week or a year or 10. But the devil can never see the events that are linked to our free decisions. Only God can know them, because for him, the past and the future are an eternal present. That's what he's saying about God. If your courses and lectures, you often warn against practices such as alternative medicines or even yoga that are now part of the everyday life of Westerners, and that can be dangerous even if they seem harmless.
Let's take it paragraph by paragraph here. Here's his first answer, and we'll take all the four. He says, the Father Durman says, the exorcist says, for my part, I do not demonize everything. Some people are mystified that I do not totally condemn homeopathy. For example, I suspend my judgment, even though I know that the creator of homeopathy was an esotericist, which means one who believes in a select body of secret or obscure teachings, or that's also called a Gnostic. He says, but I would not demonize this reality as a whole. However, it is true that many other forms of alternative medicine could be seen as superstitions. The adherence to certain products, to some natural elements, waiting for miraculous effects, is a form of superstition. So I know what Father's saying there. Of course, even with errors, even in theological and philosophical errors, there are some truth. For example, there's some truth in Buddhism. What's one of the truths I could tell you? He wanted to find a way to be able to cope with suffering. Well, his way was false we have the way to cope with suffering. It's called offering it up, redemptive suffering. So you could look at all the systems. There are some elements of truth. They're tracking towards the truth, but they're never going to find it apart from Jesus and the church. That's the point that I think Father's making in that paragraph. Next, Ruben.
And he talks about yoga. With regard to yoga, once again, I cannot demonize it since the church itself has not done so. So if then Cardinal Ratzinger once said in an interview, yoga is simply practiced as an exercise aimed at psychological well-being. There is nothing to object to it. But in this case, it is no longer yoga. It is known in India, as it is known in India, the one that Hinduism has created. And it did so with a religious purpose, that helping the human beings to pull themselves out of a reality considered as an illusion. I was a little, I was questioning this next sentence here. He says, I practiced yoga myself for many years when I was young, but I abandoned it precisely because I realized that I was turning back on myself. And unbeknownst to me, yoga was doing what it was designed to do, that is bringing us back into ourselves and reconnecting with the Brahman into which we are destined to merge. Now, that seemed a little problematic there, that sentence there.
Well, Ruben, I think he caught himself. He said basically, he's saying this, I'll parse it. He's saying when I was young and I was a malformed liberal, I was practicing yoga. And then when I realized what I was doing, with the sentence that he says, I was turning back on myself. What does that mean? Yeah, because Hinduism says tap into the power of the divine within you. So he's starting to, wait a minute. The power of the divine within me, that's not Christianity. The power of the divine is the Holy Spirit that I receive at baptism, and it's not basically inherent to me. It's something that I receive from the church. And so I think he caught himself as a young priest saying, this is making me think that I'm a divine, instead of realizing that the divinity has been poured into me at baptism, and divinity stays in me as I live in a state of grace. So I think he caught himself, because Hinduism teaches that, the goal of Hinduism is to look at the divine within you and then to reconnect with the Brahman. Well, the Brahman is one of the Hindu gods. I mean, amongst Hindus, they don't even agree amongst themselves. Some say we have thousands of gods. Some say we have millions of gods. And the Brahman is, according to them, the creator God, because they got the God of war. They got the God of everything, the God of lightning. So the Brahman is the creator God. So sometimes you'll find Catholic liberals trying to say, well, the Brahman is just the first person of the Trinity. No, it's not.
Goodness.
Now, so the next paragraph is this, Father responds, another example of that is Reiki, which consists of the laying on of hands. We Catholics use the laying on of hands when the priest consecrates the bread and wine, but it is in order to allow the action of the Holy Spirit. The priest does not do it by virtue of his own energy. Reiki masters, on the contrary, claim they have this power and a healing energy within them. At the end of a real initiation that invokes the recitation of a sacred Japanese text, and this is obviously completely contrary to the Catholic faith. In short, one must always discern case by case. One cannot make a definitive judgment for all these medicines and wellness practices, but some of them can definitely be problematic. So the problem with Reiki is this. Again, exorcists will teach Catholics, you have to watch who you allow to lay hands on you. Because in Catholic spiritual warfare, there's a thing called demonic transference, okay? Which means if you're letting the neighborhood curandera and shaman and witch doctor lay hands on you because you got a bad back, you fell off your ladder at work, and they're laying hands on you and rubbing you down, well, if they're diabolically afflicted, which most of them are, they're transferring their baggage over to you. And also, you have no idea what prayers are praying over you. They're not praying Catholic prayers, trust me. Okay, they're doing spells. Yeah. They're doing hexes. They're calling upon demons. They call them spirits. They're calling upon spirits to come and perform some type of healing. And all this is transferred, and it is transferred also by the laying on of hands. This whole thing that they have energy, the energy, quote unquote, that they're transferring is diabolical, because that's what they're calling. They're calling diabolical spirits to come and help them, provide some sort of healing for you.
That's right. And I know that there's some people that have gone to these people to have their fortunes told, or to have their, to find out if they should stay with their husband or not, and has been cheating on, And so they, you know, they say sometimes the person gets it right about a little bit about their story that they weren't supposed to have known, and it immediately gives credibility to that person. But the devil can lead that person that he or she is leading that the person seeking help. It's the devil many times that will give that information to the practitioner, whatever they call themselves. So the next question: what can the Catholic faithful do to deal with the problem of the resurgence of Satanism that you've just mentioned? He says prayer is the first weapon for themselves, but also for the ministers of the church, all those who have positions of responsibility. Then in these times of confusion where the devil has a large avenue in front of them, the faithful have a duty to deepen their faith, educate themselves. We need to think a lot about matters of faith in the world around us. It is exactly why I called my book, Let's Reason About the Devil. So, just like St. Paul says that when we were babies, we ate and spoke as babies, but now that we're adults, we've got to take our faith to the next level, basically. We got to go deeper and to get closer to God and ask God to allow for us to get closer to him.
Ruben, Father said something here, Derman. This is something that every exorcist I've spoken with has said the same thing. He's saying, well, number one, at the last paragraph that you wrote, prayer is the first weapon. Most people that are diabolically afflicted have no prayer life. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Then Father also says in that paragraph that you read, he said, the faithful have a duty to deepen their faith. Every exorcist I've talked to, they'll say, all the cases that I get initially, the people don't know their faith. So they'll tell you the number one reason for diabolical affliction is Catholics or the people that are coming in don't know their faith. In other words, that not knowing your faith is a vacuum for the diabolical. So if you don't know your faith, check that box with a lot of people, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi. And number two, and then you don't have a prayer life, check that you're completely unprotected. You might as well be sleeping. It would be like having a house in a horrible neighborhood of high crime and having the front door completely open at night before as you go to bed.
Yep. Okay, coming up, we're going to be talking about yesterday's incident at the Capitol and talking about things about the election. Feel free to call in 1-888-526-2151.
Hi, this is Jesse Romero from the Terry and Jesse Show, also from Jesus 911. Let's face it, we all need to use the internet, but we need screen accountability. Why? Pornography is a huge problem, especially on the internet. And every time we tap into the internet, we get bombarded with images and temptations that degrade our humanity. So we need Covenant Eyes to block these pornographic sites and advertisements from infiltrating our lives. Covenant Eyes helps us take custody of our eyes and custody of our intellect. So I recommend you go to covenanteyes.com and type in the promo code VMPR to support the network. Protect yourself and your family from the imminent threats on the internet. www.covenanteyes.com, code VMPR, live porn free. Thank you for listening to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Thank you. God bless you. Keep the faith.
Jesus said in Matthew 26, "Stay awake and pray that you may not enter into temptation." According to St. Ephrem, Jesus, who feared nothing, experienced fear and asked to be freed from death, although he knew it was impossible. How much more must we persevere in prayer before temptation assails us, so that we may be freed when the test has come? May God grant that we may withstand temptation and carry out His will in all things.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Jesus 911, where iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. Jesse, what we saw yesterday was on live TV was disturbing. As somebody who spent 31 years in law enforcement, who has worked his whole life to get justice for victims, you don't want to see that happen. You don't want to see the party of the right to go and break laws that and invade our capital. I was really upset about that, but on the other hand, I see that they're so frustrated, as I am, as you are, frustrated that the left doesn't even want to see the evidence. They just don't care. They don't care that the election was stolen and that it was. It's like win at all costs is their motto, and so it's unfortunate that we lost there was the first person that was shot in there was a female, a 14-year veteran of the Air Force. She was a patriot. Her husband says that she's out of San Diego. Her husband said she loves President Trump, and that Secret Service officer who shot her, he better be held accountable for that. He did it, that she posed some kind of danger. She either had a weapon or,
I agree.
You don't hear anything about that. If it was the roles were reversed, when we saw the rioting all last summer and the police were trying to protect, let's say the courthouse or something, and they pushed somebody back, or they used pepper spray or less lethal weapons on them, the left would start asking for a big investigation, and God forbid the police had shot somebody. Now we have somebody who was shot, and granted she was storming the White House, storming the Capitol, but there's still, why didn't other people get shot then? Why her? So
yeah, this happened all over the country with Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Yeah.
And they were actually attacking police and breaking into police stations and stuff, and setting fires, jumping on police cars. I don't think there was I didn't see the aggression against them. They were actually told to stand down. It was a bad situation, but here's my angle, Ruben. Here's how I want to just talk about this. How did this all happen? Because what happened last night was treacherous.
Yeah.
Okay. We were having a showdown in this country between patriotism and communism. Guess what happened last night? Communism won. I hate to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Communism is now planted on American soil, and these communists didn't have to fire a single shot, so to speak. They did it by cheating their way to this point. And of course, being an ex-cop, Ruben, yourself, myself, what frustrates us is, can you imagine going to a murder scene? Okay, you got all kinds of you got all kinds of eyewitness testimony. You got DNA all over the place. You got the victim's blood all over the killer. You've got a handwritten note from the killer to the victim saying that he's going to kill him. You got a video. You got the smoking gun. Then you take all this evidence. The police collects all this evidence, this proof positive, and you take it over the district attorney. And guess what? Means absolutely nothing to him because he refuses to file charges. In other words, this killer's never going to get justice. That's precisely what we have going on right now, Ruben, in this post-election. And it's horrendous.
It is.
This Lady Justice is blind. They say, Lady Justice. No. Baloney. Lady Justice is blind. And I'll tell you it's more upsetting is that we had the opportunity to fix it this time. But the rhinos of the Republican Party, they basically, they just went along with the left. They just said, let's move on. They don't want to, They didn't want to fight this. They had no will to fight this. And so now, forevermore, the Democrats know, Ruben, that they can steal elections every 4 years, every 2 years. If they got away with the biggest election, a presidential election of the greatest president in my lifetime,
Yep.
Ruben, there's no way a conservative will ever win in the future again.
Yeah, that's very. It's going to be a daunting task. And Jesse, there's some articles that are coming out that's saying that some of those protesters that were storming the Capitol were actually Antifa members in MAGA gear, and there's pictures, facial recognition pictures of several of them. And I'm looking at one right now. They were also seen in different parts of the country at BLM and Antifa rallies, and so a flyer came out. I saw the flyer about a month ago, and it was out there saying, I'll actually read it to you. It says, Antifa comrades, on November 4th, don't forget to disguise yourself as patriots, Trump supporters. Wear MAGA hats, USA flags, 3%ers insignias. A convincing police uniform is even better. And so this way, police and the patriots responding to us won't know who their enemies are, and onlookers, and that the media will think that they are Trump supporters, and basically put the blame on them. And there's a guy with a coonskin hat, and he's got horns on it. He's out there shirtless. He's got that cap that's covering his shoulders, but he's got a tattoo of a sickle and a hammer. That's a communist tattoo, Jess. I don't think any patriots are walking around with communist tattoos on them. But I posted this on Facebook, and of course the fact checkers, they shot it down. Oh, it's fake news. But I'm telling you, it's more and more people are seeing this, and they're saying, "Oh no, this is right on." So,
and Ruben, let's just be honest. You know who the fact checkers are? They're young college graduates. These are millennials and just young people who got a job at social media. They're good at computers, and they determine, with their malformed secular humanist Marxist education, they determine what's right and what's wrong, or what's true and what's false. Can you imagine a 25-year-old kid with a bachelor's degree from Pepperdine University from a Marxist education is going to determine every day what's true and what's not true? That's censorship, Ruben.
Yeah.
And this is, again, another symptom of communism.
Yep, exactly. So just yesterday, I was out in L.A. at this L.A. City Hall. They had about 1,000 people out there, and it was peaceful. A couple of Antifa people showed up trying to take pictures, and they were, they were chased away, and but there was no violence. These Antifa people, they tried to infiltrate it, but that didn't work out. There was some good talks given yesterday, and it was also trying to get the names list together for recalling Gavin Newsom. And one speaker, he said something. I think his name is Ledger. His last name is Ledger. He's out of San Diego, and he was saying that the Republican Party has let us down, and we're gonna have to have a third party, because these sellouts in the Republican Party that they were all buddy with Trump when he was helping them get reelected, like Lindsey Graham and some others, Mitch McConnell, right? And as soon as it starts getting a little warm in the kitchen, they bail, and they just completely capitulate to the Democratic wants and needs, and it's upsetting. So there's 74 million people that voted for Trump, and I think it's more than that, but the votes were stolen from him. But I think he's ignited a fire with the conservative movement, and I think we might have a third party if Trump so chooses to do that.
Here's my take on that. The only problem is as I've read history on this, a third party is never prevailed in this country. The closest we came was Ross Perot. But what a third party does is it splits the conservative vote. Half the conservatives vote for the Republicans and half vote for the new party, like under Ross Perot. So it hasn't worked historically. All it does is split the vote. And so in Arizona, things weren't as peaceful here. I was at the Arizona rally at the state capitol, and there was people yelling at each other because you have the ones that are saying, okay, let's calm down. What are we going to do from here on? And they want to take, again, just peaceful tactics. You know, what do we do legislatively, politically, going back to our churches, our families? You had another faction of people there that were screaming and saying, you know, again, you could just see there was a sense of rage and anger where you couldn't even talk to them. So yesterday at the state capitol, you had Republicans, but you had some Republicans that, I mean, these guys were just fit to be tied. And again, when you start getting angry and dropping F-bombs and spit nails, that's not going to help President Trump any. And that's not going to help him, you know, not going to have him get reelected as well either. And so, you know, all these, you know, walking around with, you know, saying F words to the Democrats with, you know, bullhorns. Yeah, so there was a lot of that yesterday. Some of us were, you know, praying in our little enclaves out there and trying to, you know, listen to some of the hopeful messages from some of the speakers. But yeah, Ruben, the devil has and the old tactic of Satan is divide and conquer. And right now, what he's done, he's divided the conservatives right now. You have people that are disagreeing on how we should proceed and stuff. And I just see the hands of Satan all over this. And I'll tell you something else that makes me sad. As people that that are supposedly supposed to be conservatives, a lot of people a lot of the state legislators are Republican. The numerous judges, including the Supreme Court justices, and they simply refuse to listen to the evidence. Yeah. They're trying to find one technicality after another, because they want to avoid the whole thing. Yeah, they were derelict in their duty, and I see this is why some good guys are just like throwing in the towel. They're just saying, I'm going to storm the Capitol building. I mean, these guys aren't listening to us. So I can empathize with what they did, but there's no way I would have done something like that because, again, I still have too much respect for the office, if not for the people in it.
That's right. You're listening to Jesus 911. We'll come back to talk some more about the election and what happened yesterday. We'll be right back.
Hands-on Apologetics, you have entered into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo, where we go wall-to-wall with defending, explaining, sharing the faith. Master Apologist Carlo Broussard. Carlo, welcome to Hands-on Apologetics.
Hey, Gary, it's great to be back in the dojo, my friend.
Master Apologist Ken Hensley, welcome to Hands-on Apologetics.
Good to see you again, Gary. Good to be with you.
Michael Barber, welcome. You have entered into the Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo.
Gary, thanks for having me on.
We are chatting with Master Apologist Carl Keating.
Gary, it's great to be back with you.
Coming into the dojo is our good friend Steve Ray.
Thank you, Gary. Good to be here.
Tim Staples, welcome to Hands-on Apologetics.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Join many others in Gary Machuda's Apologetics Dojo.
We have some of the best Catholic apologists in the nation.
Streaming live weekdays from 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific. Hands-on Apologetics on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
If you shop on Amazon.com, there's an easy way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Just visit smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center under the desired charity. Now, when you log into your Amazon account and purchase products, a portion of it will automatically go to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio at no cost to you. Thanks in advance for supporting CRC and VMPR, and may God richly bless you and your family.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Jesus 911, we are the DOJ, the disciples of Jesus, and
Amen.
we aim to ATF, assemble the faithful. So we've got to remember that Jesus is still in control, Jesse, and that we got to fall back on our faith even harder, even more during these troubling times. We're going to be, granted, this thing's still not over. I mean, I've got some hope. It's fading, but there's still some things that could happen before the 20th. So I'm going to leave it like that. But you know what, Jesse? We have to remember that our salvation is in Jesus Christ, and
not in politics.
But it's going to make it harder. Our religious persecution is going to be go up, and we have to be able to, if need be, go become an underground church if it ever gets to that point. But
Ruben, the problem is here's why a lot of people are upset, because again, all of us as Americans, Catholics, we pay taxes to the government, to protect our rights, our rights of life and liberty. We pay for our law enforcement, we pay for the military, and we see that our government is lying to us. The people that we pay their big fat salaries, we see that they're lying to us. And then we see that the Republican leadership is basically folded in half, but for probably about maybe 24 of them. And again, the only thing that I can tell, I bet there's personal gain. The vast majority of Republicans that wouldn't fight, you know why, Ruben? Follow the money. I bet there's some personal financial gain, or they're compromised with sexually. That's the way they compromise all politicians. They buy you out, or they buy you a prostitute, and they take pictures and hang it over your head and say, we'll share this with your wife and kids. How do you like that? So that's what's going on right now, Ruben. We have Marxism coming to America. And what's horrible is that America's built under what? In God we trust. Number 2, liberty. 3, e pluribus unum. Okay, from many one. The American experiment of freedom, to me, after 246 years, it's starting to fail. Why? Just like all world powers do, Ruben. All world powers. I forget which historian wrote this. It'll come up to me right now. It'll come to my mind. But there's a famous historian that wrote that all world powers, historically in Western civilization, they always collapse from within. They never get taken out by an external enemy, like through war. They collapse from greed, from horrible leaders that follow their fallen human nature. They fall. These empires collapse because of, again, self-interested leaders. And this is what's happening right now, Ruben. We have the beginnings with a Biden-Harris presidency. We have the beginnings of the collapse of the greatest experiment in Western civilization, which is the United States of America, because people voted for socialism, or it was stolen. But I can't believe not even one person, any Catholic that voted for Biden and Harris, shame on them. Shame on them. And I'm going to tell you, when they start putting the screws to us, these Catholics around me that voted for Biden, I'm going to say, shut your mouth. You voted for him. I'll be persecuted, but I'm going to complain and I'm going to pray also. I didn't vote for him because I knew this was happening. You betrayed your faith by voting for him. And now, man up and hold your chin up as we're being persecuted, because this is what you wanted.
Communist.
Yeah. Now, here's the second point I'll make, Ruben. This is kind of more of a macro level. Does this surprise me that this is happening? No, I'll tell you why. Okay? I think it was President Ronald Reagan that said, in order to be free, a people must be virtuous and God-fearing. Okay? So I'm going to key in on that. He said that, and also many of the founding fathers. In order for a people to be free, the people, that's us the citizens, must be virtuous. That means good moral habits and God-fearing. Well, Ruben, welcome to America right now. Are we virtuous and God-fearing? Because that's what the founding fathers said. That's what it takes for us to preserve freedom, because we could lose it any generation. Well, are we virtuous? 83% of Americans believe that abortion should be legal in some or all circumstances. 73% of Americans believe divorce is morally acceptable. 65% of Americans believe having a baby outside of marriage is morally acceptable. 65% of Americans believe smoking marijuana recreationally is morally acceptable. 91% of Americans believe birth control is morally acceptable. 69% of Americans believe fornication is morally acceptable. 67% believe homosexuality morally acceptable. 54% believe that euthanasia is morally acceptable. So my question is this. I say, well, God has allowed us to get away with all this sin for so long. God is finally calling America to accountability. Or as someone said, I don't want to mention his name, the chickens have come home to roost. God is saying, okay, you guys want vice and not virtue? Okay, just like in the Old Testament, you want moral corruption? You want moral decay? You want vice? Fine, I'll give you wicked leaders. This is what's happening right now. We are living under the Old Testament, way of God meting out justice. You want to be immoral? You like to vote for evil people? You want your bread and circuses and forget about the important issues of life like worshiping God, giving God his due justice? Right. Mm-hmm. Fine, then I'm going to give you what you all deserve. Ruben, I hate to say it, but I'm swallowing this vinegar, but this is what's happening to us right now.
That's right, Jesse. Standing at the steps of the City Hall, I took a note of what's written on the building, and it says, "He that violates his oath profanes the divinity of faith itself." And it was a quote from Cicero, and that's written right above the entryway of the City Hall, LA City Hall. And you know, our politicians have just violated that oath that they've taken. I know we don't put our trust in men, but you know, we have to now. Even I think my opinion is we're going to have to pray even harder for the Pope to consecrate Russia to her Immaculate Heart. Yes. Because she said there would be a period of peace, and that hasn't been done. Contrary to what the Conciliar Church will tell you, there hasn't been a period of peace that Our Lady promised. So, you know, that could be.
Well, that's the evidence right there. There hasn't been a period of peace. That's the factual evidence right there, Ruben.
Absolutely, and you know, I think if Pope Francis was able to do that, that would rehabilitate his, gaffes that we've been seeing.
He'd go down as a superstar. No, seriously.
Imagine that would, I think that might have some change his heart. Maybe he'll get away from some of these climate change issues and globalism, but definitely I think we need to pray for that, because we are seeing that we are the product of what Our Lady said, you know, that Russia would spread her evil ways. And here we are. Who would have thought that we in this country would be looking at communism right smack dab in the face, you know? And now we're fighting it on our own shores. It's crazy, Jess.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, a lot of people are playing in the sandbox. And what I mean by that, they don't want to wake up to reality. They're like, no. The Democrats, they don't embrace socialism. And come on, guys. In other words, a lot of people on our side, Ruben, are way too gentle. They don't realize that this is a fist fight right here. Yeah. This is a street fight right now. We lost it politically, but we won't lose it spiritually. At least some of us won't lose it spiritually. But I think a lot of Catholics and even patriots and conservatives have to, as they say, become woke, and become woke to the fact that, you know what, we've been entertained like in the days of the Roman Empire by too much bread and too much circuses, and we've allowed the Marxist, the Stalinist to come into our country little by little in our schools, in the media, in Hollywood, little by little, and they've hatched their evil plans. And now, Ruben, they're going to control in a few days, unless a miracle happens, really, all the levers of power. And the fact is, let's not forget, the Catechism actually teaches the way Satan acts upon the world is through politics.
Yeah. The great Alan West, former congressman, former military guy, he wrote something that says that he said that it was upsetting to him. The Texas Democratic Party is calling for Senator Cruz to step down due to his opposition to certifying the election. And then he responded saying that they're delusional. No one called for the congressional Democrats to step down in their previous opposition to certifying elections or for peddling the absurdity of impeachment of the president being a Russian agent. And he says that does the Texas Democratic Party call for Representative Eric Swalwell to be removed from his House Intelligence Committee? That's the guy who was compromised with a Chinese spy, a female. He was dating
having
her.
sex with her for a long time.
So they haven't done it. They're just deranged. There's this assertion that we don't have a right to speak up.
Ruben, our side is soft. It's way too gentle. Look at the other side, the Democrats. They circle the wagons around each other. Our side, they shoot each other in the back.
Yeah. So going forward, what's the game plan, Chess?
The game plan is this. As Catholics, nothing changes for us. Why? Who's on the throne? No president's on the throne, no senator. Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Guess what? He's coming back. He's coming back, or you're going to him. Like my mother-in-law died yesterday. My mother-in-law went to go see Jesus at her personal judgment. Let me pray for her. Eternal rest grant unto Maria Chacona, Lord. Let your perpetual light shine upon her. May the soul of Maria Chacon, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen. Every single one of us has a date with Jesus. He's the king. He can't get impeached. You can't steal his election. So what is that? What's incumbent upon us as Catholics? I don't care who's in the White House or who's running this country. We're called to be holy, period.
Absolutely.
We're called to live in a state of grace. Okay, there's no excuse. Under communism or under freedom, we're called to be holy and live in a state of grace. And number 3, the Great Commission, Matthew 28:19. You're called to evangelize. There's a lot of family and friends of ours that are lost and dying in the slime of mortal sin. They don't know their faith. They don't know Jesus. It's your job to evangelize them. Throw them that lifesaver because they're swimming in shark-infested waters. So 3 things. Keep your eyes on Jesus. He's our King. He's our Lord. Number 2, be holy or die trying. Number 3, get out there and evangelize.
That's right. We're called to be saints. Let's get out there and let's do our part. Let's not sit back. We can't be sitting on the sidelines. This Catholicism is not a spectator sport.
That's right.
Let's get in the game. Tell the coach, put me in, coach. Tell Jesus, put me in. So, you've been listening to Jesus 911. Next up, Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Mashuda from the Midwest Command Center. We are 10-7. Thank you for listening. God bless. Keep the faith.